key innovations because we've been able to set this up from scratch, and we're not just building a bridge to an existing network. We have a pool of Flare available for minting your asset, let's say it's Litecoin, onto the Flare network. And so you get a reward for minting your assets onto Flare, for bringing liquidity onto Flare, as any DeFi product really gives you a reward. But that Flare then lets you turn that back around and become an agent in the system and earn the mining reward, which is our Oracle system. So we think that that's a great incentive.
Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh.
When will FAssets go live on Flare? Will they go live right after the token generation event and the launch? And how long will it take? So, a couple things before we read into this. First, they're going to have to go and be tested on Songbird. But before that, they're going to have to be tested on Costin. So we'll see this all take place prior to any launch on Flare. Keep in mind, what they're building is a cross-chain lending system that's DeFi lending system that's never been built before, using a token that is brand new as collateral. So we have to keep that in mind, that it's not being backed one-to-one with, XRP to the FXRP that you meant. It doesn't work like that. It's a collateral system.
So FAssets are kind of what we call a delta hedged synthetic. So one of the main problems with a synthetic token, whereby you put in some collateral, you get another token, let's say DAI on Ethereum, is that you're immediately exposed to the price. The idea of a delta hedged is that you are long an asset on one chain, short an asset on another chain, and so you're less exposed to the price. You pay a fee for putting your collateral in. So we separate, unlike the synthetic where you're creating DAI, we say there's a collateral provider and there's a minter. And they can be different parties. They can be the same, but they can be different parties. And so the minter is paying a fee to the collateral provider. So it makes it actually really easy to access. So if you only have XRP, or you only have Bitcoin, or you only have DOGE, you don't have to have a huge amount of Flare to create FDOGE or FXRP or FBitcoin. You just need to pay a fee to someone to essentially use their collateral. And they collect the fees, they manage the collateral, and you get your DOGE on Flare, so FDOGE or FXRP. And also, one of the things we want to do is we want to enable DeFi in a way that is, I suppose you might call it DeFi, but it's like a different kind of DeFi. It's sort of lower risk, which is.
So it also will need a governance vote to go into effect. So that governance vote could take place right when we have the FIP 01 vote, because there's going to be, what I did see on the governance is it looks like there's going to be more than one vote. Not sure what the other is going to be for. It could be for like the FTSOs. It could be Songbird governance to implement. I feel I'm leaning towards it's likely to be Songbird governance, because Flare governance has to approve and ratify that we want Songbird to be the lower house of governance. So I think that would be on there, but there could be a third. Now, we could vote then and say, okay, we want the FAsset system, and then they could go and launch it on Songbird testing and everything, and then it comes onto Flare. It's possible that happens, or they start doing testing, and then we vote in a month or so. I wouldn't expect it to be out right away. This thing is being kept under stealth, like deep under wraps. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One, they're embedding the auditor. So Flare team is building the FAsset system. What's different with building the FAsset system compared to a blockchain is they're dealing with people's money. So your money, so your XRP, your Bitcoin that you saved up and worked hard for, is being bridged to another network. And with all the hacks and things that, have gone wrong,
we make design decisions such that we feel the risk is limited, can support mass utility. Our game as an organization within the industry is to mediate the risk in blockchain such that people feel comfortable to use it. And as a result of that, the usage increases substantially. You think that 4 or 5 weeks is not enough time to get an audit team, an external audit team, to understand every aspect of how a bridge works or how a protocol works? The way we are building our protocols is by embedding the auditor into the build from pretty much day one. This costs us 5 to 6 times more to audit the protocol, but we think that is a substantially better way to do it. So that's one of the areas that we mediate risk, extremely rigorous with testing. We have a test net, then we have a canary net, explicit beta version of Flare.
Of embedding the auditor from day one is just a fantastic way to get things started.
Relatively well capitalized, but we'd rather ship something that we've truly done everything in order to make it as robust as possible, because at the end of the day, we're building products that deal with people's money.
Of course.
And I do actually find the attitude generally within the space when it comes to dealing with people's hard-earned money to be a little bit lax. Not to say we won't have hiccups. We probably will. But if we've designed our products properly, the hiccups that we may suffer will be of far less consequence than if we design them in the way that many of the existing products have been designed.
They want to make this a sustainable system. So they're not just trying to make one bridge, they're trying to bridge to multiple different networks. So we're going to be going to BTC, XRP, and DOGE, I believe first, are going to be probably come in waves. Now, I don't think they want to take too long either, because what the FAsset system does is a couple different things. Its first use is to be able to give access to tokens that have a lot of value. So 70% of assets, crypto, is in the form of non-smart contract blockchains assets, which is still pretty significant. XRP and BTC don't have native smart contract capabilities. So that's the first use case. It creates a lending system. So the agents will be anybody, can be an agent, will be the main player. So let's go to that. So that means 70% was in non-smart contracts. That means that more than 2/3. So it's still significant. So by minting these non-contract tokens into FAssets on Flare, new utility is brought to these chains. No longer are they simply investment assets. Now they can be put to work, earning yield or rewards in decentralized applications on the Flare network, with DeFi, NFTs, metaverse use cases available. They can also be bridged onto other smart contract chains using Flare's layer cake bridges. So when FAssets launch, anyone who mints FAssets and brings value to Flare will be able to earn a share of the monthly rewards from the cross-chain incentive pool.
Key innovations, because we've been able to set this up from scratch, and we're not just building a bridge to an existing network. We have a pool of Flare available for minting your asset, let's say it's Litecoin, onto the Flare network. And so you get a reward for minting your assets onto Flare, for bringing liquidity onto Flare, as any DeFi product really gives you a reward. But that Flare then lets you turn that back around and become an agent in the system and earn the mining reward, which is our Oracle system. So we think that that's a great incentive.
Oh, the first FAssets that will be launched will be these, well, they're saying 6. BTC, XRP, LTC, DOGE, ALGO, Filecoin, and XLM. They are powered by Flare's native interoperability technology, the FTSO, which provides data for each underlying asset. Also, the FAssets come with a FTSO vote. So when you mint, say, FXRP, it comes with an FTSO vote, and that's going to be part of, I think, the FTSO upgrade that's going to be implemented. So you don't earn rewards for that, but they'll be valuable to the FTSOs because it gives them vote power. And this is something else that will level out that whole vote power bunch up at the top. Now it's not just Flare being weighted in. You'll have FAssets. Now, when you use that FAsset vote and delegate, it only goes towards that time series oracle. So every price feed or pairing is a different time series oracle. So all the ones. So this vote power would only go towards that specific round of that price feed. But it's still valuable to the FTSOs. So they might pay or offer something in return for that. And I think the FTSO V2 is going to have something more along with it, because we know the relayer is coming and that you will stake FLR. This is to gain the price of the underlying asset. So Flare is only able to build this system because it has an underlying decentralized oracle system built into its smart contracts. Like the FAsset smart contracts can integrate the FTSO price feeds so they know the collateral ratios in real time. They don't have to count on an external system, some API from Coinbase or anything like that. It's built into the system. And we see that it's worked brilliantly. Like when we look at the data and you compare it to like Binance's price feeds, you could see that Binance has these hard dips and hard spikes where the time series oracle doesn't have that. It's more in line. So it's better than any exchange API, which can go down. And everyone calls glitches and they say, oh, XRP is $10 million or 10,000. It's just an API glitch. And they happen often. So the state connector is then what allows it to trustlessly and securely prove that the assets have been locked on the origin chain. So, for example, when you mint FXRP, you would send your XRP to an account or to however they set the app up. It'll probably be simple on the user interface side, but that XRP will then get divvied up amongst all the agents who put up collateral. So no one agent will be responsible for your collateral. It'll be whatever agents have collateral available, they will then get that proportion of your XRP, and they will also get the proportion of the fees that you have to pay. Now, the fees, I don't think that whole 5% thing, I don't think it's going to be that high. And it might go based on supply and demand, I'm sure. Or it could be a governance function. So, FAssets effectively operate as a collateral lending system where Flare native token holders lend collateral for minting FAssets and are paid with the underlying assets such as BTC.
So when we launch the FAssets, you'll be able to mint and use on Flare FBTC, FXRP, FALGO, FDOGE, FLTC, FXLM, and I think I said FFile coin. And the uses of that will be DeFi, crowdfunding, which I'll come on to in a second, and payments. And again, I'll make the point. You'll be able to use Bitcoin for payments cheaply and quickly. And that's really quite fun. And you'll be able to deploy your Flare as an agent into the FAsset system to earn in the FAsset you're securing. So you'll be able to earn Bitcoin if you're securing FBitcoin. You'll be able to earn XRP if you're securing FXRP. And remember, you can earn that whilst delegating. So there's no optionality between delegating and earning the FAsset return as an agent. And that's really important.
So this right here, there's different sides to it. So you could be a minter, or you could be an agent, or you could be both. And then they have this self-mint option in there. We don't know what that is. I'm not even going to speculate on that part. But this is a way to earn blue chip cryptos. So these agents, if you want to be an agent or not, that's up to you. And, you know, you'll have to see what the risk profiles there are on that. But there's going to be plenty of entities that want to be agents. Any of these market makers, any of these institutional, you know, CeFi platforms, prime brokerages, they could earn blue chip cryptos at a very low risk in a delta hedged neutral position without having to take high risk. That's very rare to be able to do that. So I think this is going to draw ultimately a lot of attention. And now it's not that the agents don't mint too, because they could mint then some of that XRP into FXRP. Now they have to have XRP there for redemptions. But keep in mind, we're starting with 0. So there's obviously going to be a lot more mints initially. So it gives the agents very beneficial opportunities here. And then lastly, this system is only possible also because FLR, which is used as collateral and is over collateralized. Now, there might be a different ratio for Bitcoin and XRP, like it might be 200% for BTC and 250 for XRP and maybe 300% for Filecoin. I'm just throwing it out there, hypothetically. And they're earning yield with that FLR. So instead of it just being just waiting there to be used for collateral, it's earning. And even when it's being used as collateral, it's earning FTSO rewards. And they could consistently then feed that back in, and that gives them more collateral then to use. And ultimately, what this does for Flare networks and how this helps Flare price is this drives TVL. TVL is the #1 goal for when the FAsset system launches. It's not to pay everyone rewards for bridging. Like, that's a bonus you're getting for bridging, but it's really for you to use that asset. You don't have to. There's no pressure. But that's why it's getting minted. No other bridges pay rewards. So this is something unheard of, because typically they can't, because they're paying the validators of the bridge rewards to secure it, so there's nothing to pay. And you're earning a layer. Remember, Flare will be a new token, but it's a layer 1 token. It's not a Dapp token. It's not a protocol token. It's a layer 1 token. So the collateral minted of the FAssets are paid with the underlying asset, such as BTC. And remember, this was the only system they were building initially. And I'm going to speculate slightly. This system has had to be enhanced since. So it's in line with what the white paper was, but Flare's given out a lot of grants. This is a core foundational system for a cross-chain DeFi platform. Now, Layer Cake is going to be built in a similar fashion, but a little different. But concept's the same. It's still using collateral, except they might hold more of the underlying. It might be slightly different there, but Layer Cake assets, I believe, will then be able to be used in collateral. And this is what will make Flare very enticing for applications to be built on. And because all these blue chip cryptos are going to be on the network. You're going to have everything from ETH to Avalanche to BTC to XRP, and that drives liquidity in these liquidity pools. And then Layer Cake will spin up. So the FAsset system by far will be first, and it can't take too long to launch, because all these rewards that people are going to be getting every month, that's 650 million FLR, those FTSO rewards, this is where then you could go and deploy it. Now, in the beginning, you might have to be an agent and, understand what the risks are, which they're really not that much risk, because it's not like something like MakerDAO where you're issuing a synthetic asset. You have the underlying asset. So everyone always asks, so I'm going to answer it. What happens if XRP's price shoots up? Well, the agent's holding the XRP. So what? And if they minted it to FXRP, they're still holding the XRP. So you'll always get it back. And for some reason, the agents have, when a redemption goes through, there's 2 chances for the agent to redeem. If the agent doesn't redeem, and remember, it's not one agent, it'll probably be split amongst, it can be anywhere from like 5 to 50 agents. if one agent doesn't pay back in the redemption, then they lose 50% of their collateral, and then you get paid out that part in Flare. So, and then you just go and swap that to FXRP, and then you go redeem again. That's unlikely to happen because these agents are going to want to go back and forth, because they earn fees on both sides. They don't want to just be on one side. They want to be back, forth, back, forth.
But the really important difference between us and the synthetic is the synthetic means that the person who has to maintain that collateral essentially shorts the position. They don't actually necessarily have the underlying asset. Whereas in the creation of our FAssets, that person who has provided the collateral, they do actually receive the underlying asset against which they're short, which means that they're net neutral. They have no delta to the market. There may be some basis risk between the price of XRP and the price of FXRP. But the reality is, if there's suddenly volatility,
You have a kind of implied basis between the two, between the underlying and the FAsset. And that is actually the whole way that the underlying and the FAsset meet, is that they will trade slightly differently, because there's always going to be slightly different liquidity profiles. But there'll be bounds with regards to the fees, beyond which, if they go above or below the bound, it will be profitable either to create or to destroy. So to create new units of FAsset or to destroy units of FAsset in order to get the underlying. And so, in fact, we are using arbitrage to bound that price to the underlying.
And we have to, move, when we're thinking about that, out of the retail mindset where we're looking for moon for everything. And these business models for these market makers and institutions, they don't think moon and things like that. They think revenue and consistent yield streams and low risk. That's what they think. So they're able to then build off of this. Like, I could see derivatives, options, futures, synthetic assets. There's a lot of different things that could be built around this system. So it's being kept under stealth because I think one of the reasons being, I don't think they want to let it out to the competition. I mean, I wouldn't. So moving on. Each FAsset is backed by the amount of native token collateral, FLR. For security and to account for market volatility, the system ensures the amount of collateral locked is greater value than the FAssets that are minted. The ratio of collateral amount to the value of the FAssets that are minted. The ratio of that collateral could be higher for some, and it could be lower for some. So they will vary depending on whether the FAssets are self-minted or minted by an agent. Now, I'm not sure what the benefits of self-minting are, but I would think if you're self-minting, you would probably have to keep just your XRP there and put up at least 100% FLR. You might not have to put up 250%, but we'll see. Because you can't lock assets on the Flare, on the XRP ledger. But what you can do is you could slash stake on the Flare network if you went and moved that XRP then. But you have to have at least enough of it. So, but I still don't know what the benefit of doing self-minting is. Why not just be an agent? Or why not just mint? So we'll see. There might be some other benefit. Agents, minters, and redeemers. The agent is the main player in the FAsset system. They supply the collateral that is backing minted FAssets. Each agent has locked collateral that reflects the amount of FAssets they are backing. A minter pays the agent with the underlying asset. So XRP for the right to utilize the agent's collateral for minting. In the process, assets are paid and FAssets are minted on Flare. So first they send the XRP, then the agent mints it with a smart contract, mints it, and the stake connector, which is the eye in the sky, observes all this. So that's what allows this to happen so fluently, and this is all trustless. So that's important that Flare's building it, but you don't have to trust Flare. They have no admin capabilities, so this is not a regulated product. It can't be regulated because they have no control over it. Even if they said, oh, you have to KYC everyone. Okay. And then somebody else spins up a front end and you go through that one. Or you KYC. But there's nothing that can be regulated about it. And this is what I think a lot of people miss.
So I think it's really important to say, we're obviously not building anything with any intent for it to be used, for anything that contravenes regulations.
Right.
That's straight out of the box. We are obviously proponents of decentralization, strong proponents of it. Often I think about decentralization less about it as just like a goal and more about it as, if you look at, say, bridging, the lack of decentralization in bridging has caused losses. If you can build something, that is highly decentralized, it has a better chance of being robust. And so, and to put it in another way, an extreme centralization that really started this entire industry in many ways, when Bitcoin was launched, off the back of the financial crisis, the losses of that centralization continue to this day and have completely changed the global economy in the last 20 years. So there is a real reason to have decentralized economics and decentralized a decentralized economy. So obviously we would collaborate with, we would obviously have to work with regulators where we can. Obviously in DeFi, we don't know anything about the underlying users. We obviously can't blacklist addresses on the blockchain because we don't control it. That's pretty much the point of us exiting observation mode. We no longer control the blockchain. But we certainly wouldn't structure anything such that it could be used such that it was intended to be used for nefarious purposes. So I think there's a very discrete, very strong separation there.
Is that when something is truly built, a protocol, not a blockchain, is built decentralized and it has a configuration where there's multiple roles being played, right? We have agents, we have minters, we have smart contracts. They're playing specific roles and different assets that just work. And you're going to be able to do this through Bifrost. So there's going to be a very easy way. If you just wanted to mint, you could do it probably in the Bifrost wallet. Similar to if anyone's used Cosmos Station, you could do it in the wallet. Now, that probably won't give you all the data and everything about the whole system. Flare, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure, will offer probably a console, which is just a website, which would be a bookmark, just like any other Dapp that you have in Bifrost. And it would probably, that's where the agents would have to use, and maybe the self-mint. And if you wanted more access to see the whole system's collateral ratio, the risk profile, you want to see all that, you can't do that just in a little mobile app. It needs to be on a full-scale console, like a Dapp, which is good. And I think that will satisfy some people. Hey, they don't want to deal with that. They don't need all that information. They just want to, wrap it and go and earn their FLR and maybe use it. So a redeemer does the opposite. It sends the FAssets to the system burns those FAssets, and the redeemer receives the underlying asset in return. So that frees up their collateral then. So they want to do redemptions because it frees up the FLR for them to do more mints. Agents receive fees from minters in Flare tokens to reserve collateral. It's a very small amount, but minters do have to pay a small amount of FLR tokens. And in the underlying asset, that will be a little more. That will be the fee. Minters will receive rewards simply for holding FAssets and bringing their value onto Flare. With FAssets, approximately an additional 70% of the total value of all crypto will be able to participate in decentralized finance on Flare, unleashing a wave of liquidity for application builders. Token holders will also be able to use Layer Cake to bridge their FAssets to other smart contract networks. So DeFi is by far the biggest use case right now for crypto. There's no argument right there with that. DeFi is just finance, right? And we've seen the beginning of it, but now we're going to start seeing mature protocols and real utility, because this is real utility. And this is the foundation that you build, dApps could build around all this. And this is how you get that composable ecosystem. This is going to happen on the XRP ledger. A lot of people don't realize it yet, but it's coming. Well before banks are going to hold XRP. But this is happening on Flare. This is part of their design, and this has never been done. So this is why it's not hype and it's not speculation. This is happening. They're building this. They had this built ready to go last year. So they felt like they wanted to embed the auditor. Instead of just having the auditor come in, hey, we did a 3-week audit, you have no smart contract bugs, you're good. How many times have we seen, it's audited and then something goes wrong? And with their system, it's more about like running simulations. So keep in mind, Flare is a data provisioning network, and the 3 co-founders are all machine learning, either quantum machine learning PhDs or masters in machine learning. Hugo has a machine learning degree, but he's the commodities derivative trader. So you would have to think that this is going to tie into it, is that idea of, predictions and machine learning going forward. A lot of these agents, they don't use the word agent by accident. Agent is always used in AI and machine learning because ultimately they're just going to be machines that are going to operate and go back and forth with the collateral and just manage it, either based on an algorithm or some kind of AI in the future. And this opens the door for agents to be played by roles by different entities. It's enticing. So instead of just getting FLR like a VC and saying, hey, let's hope the price goes up, or let's stake it and earn our 6% or 4% yield, now they have an activity to do. And it opens up a world of possibilities because they could utilize some of the collateral, but then they got to be careful because if they use too much of it, they have to be able to have it there for redemptions. The reason why, so they can get liquidated technically, but they shouldn't have to, because all they would have to do is say the agent took your XRP and it minted FXRP with it. Now you go to redeem and they don't have the XRP. All they have to do is go back and mint the redeem it themselves to XRP. And they have the collateral there. So no matter what XRP's price does, they're going to always have the collateral. They're not going to run off and sell it. They're going to want to utilize it. It's possible also that there's a liquidity pool between FXRP and XRP that's cross-chain, and that's where they then deploy, and then that would be easily accessible. It's just that it's, we think of, lock 1-to-1, that's the best way to do it. It's not the best way to do it. We've seen that's been failed time and time again. So Flare is not building the bridge like that. And this opens up more possibilities here because it gives the massive use case to FLR as collateral. So every time $1 is minted, at least $2 to $2.50 in dollars is locked up. So there's a lot of people who hold XRP. It doesn't have to be people who hold Flare, though. Now, I know it does say that you have to pay a fee in Flare, but I'm sure that could be paid through with just the minting asset, like some other networks do. So you could see people using the network, minting FAssets, who say sold the airdrop or didn't get the airdrop, or have some other asset like Bitcoin or ALGO, and they want to now tap into some DeFi application. So the other thing is we want DeFi applications for people to mint. So
FLTC, Flare Litecoin, what they do is they send, let's say $1 of Flare Litecoin to that agent. on the Litecoin network. So that agent has collateralized with $2.50. They now hold that $1 of Litecoin on the Litecoin network. And they're now short on Flare because it's been issued to the person who created it and now short one Litecoin. So they're net basically flat, but they're collateralized with this 2.5 times the value of what's been issued. And so what that means is, from everyone's perspective, is that no one has to trust anyone, because the network just administers all of this. It administers the collateral. It observes the transaction on Litecoin. It allows for the destruction of the Flare Litecoin to be minted back to enable the movement back on the Litecoin network, so that you can redeem trustlessly and create trustlessly. And that's the important bit. It should be pretty seamless in eventuality.
Yes, there's an incentive for the earn the yield, but that's not your main incentive. And I know this. I know that that's been a core focus point, but that's just one thing. Now, everyone's going to have a different strategy with this. When it comes to the FLR strategy and your FAsset strategy, they are different, but then they could intertwine. And this is not going to be out there in day one. It's not going to be out there in day 2 or in week 2. It's going to take a little time. I don't think it's going to take that long. I mean, I guess if you want me to make a prediction, I would say if we launch January 9th, I would say, it'd be nice to see it by, latest March 1st. I would like to see that. And I would like to see testing at least begin. The reason why I think it's not being tested on Songbird right now, another reason, is Songbird's not fully decentralized. And if Flare team launches a cross-chain collateral protocol on a centralized network where they control the validators, that's questionable. So that's why I think they're holding off on that. And I would expect this thing to come out, flawlessly. Plus they're getting partners. So Nexo would probably be interested in this. They could earn, Kraken, Block Daemon. They could all offer software packages. Here you go. Here's your agent package. Plug and play. Go ahead. Okay. Now Wintermute was one of their partners, investors. They could be an agent. Genesis Capital was one of their partners, but they kind of, are in hot water, but no risk to Flare. I saw that going around. There's no risk to Flare just because Genesis invested in Flare a little bit, or Charlie Lee did, or Doquan. It doesn't mean anything. They have some equity. So what? In the Flare limited team, who is going to be one participant and one infrastructure provider on the Flare network. That's it. So we should be getting another white paper probably before this comes out. I would expect. And this is the first of the 2 applications that Flare's building. One more thing. This is going to be governed by the FLR token holders. That's actually very important because it's a truly decentralized application. And there's not too many of those out there right now. I always put Aave at the top because they probably have the best governance, but Compound is like truly decentralized for the most part. Even Uniswap to an extent is pretty decentralized right now because it has a lot of front ends. Curve is fairly decentralized because there's so many different entities that have Curve. Yearn has become more, these bigger protocols have become more decent. MakerDAO, obviously. Flare, instead of having just, a random Dapp spin up on top of something like Ethereum and hope it all patches together, Flare's meticulously designing it from the beginning. So they could build these 2 protocols, and now they're like, okay, well, we got some other ideas. That's what they give the grants for. And since it's been 2 years, more people have got to know Flare within the industry. So I think they're separated enough from Ripple to where it's not going to give anyone doubt like, oh, they're in an SEC case, so we can't deal with Flare. Bitstamp said they're supporting Flare. So I don't think there's any regulatory issues with FLR. It's not connected to XRP. It's nothing to do with its price at all. So those are just the first 5 that could be minted. We could see other types of things minted off this collateral system. So keep that in mind. Like we could see gold minted. Do you need gold though? You don't need the gold. You could just have the collateral there, and it could find the price feed of it, and now you could get exposure to gold as F gold. That would be interesting. And then other synthetic assets. So this is a collateral system they're building at the heart. And I think that's the most important besides a DEX. Having this, it's the heart of DeFi, is collateral and then borrowing and lending. So you could have something like that attached to it. And then you have these aggregators that will come on top. So in due time, what I think we'll see is DAOs and protocols just offer the ability to stake with them, and then they route the assets to the agents as collateral, or the DAOs are agents, and then we get these aggregators coming in doing all these different things because there's so many different ways to earn. And if you're using layer cake assets as collateral, it makes sense because it earns. So it's not just FAssets that will earn. Layer cake assets will earn too. So it's not going to be a super high amount that is going to be rewarded out, but in like everything else in Flare, the very beginning will be the highest rewards because there'll be the least participation. So this is definitely going, and then TVL wise. So the more TVL they can build up, the more they'll get noticed on things like, DeFi Llama and bridges. Like the Bitcoin and XRP and Litecoin and XLM, those are big networks. And ALGO, since we're close with, we could build up a nice amount of TVL, but this is what you're saving your FLR for. Now you might be thinking, hey, I don't want to be an agent. I don't want to get involved with that. I want to take the risks. That's fine right now. But keep observing the situation. And as you learn how the system works and you get more familiar with it, you might be like, okay, well, I got all this FLR. It's sitting in my wallet. Well, I could just use it as collateral. I still earn my delegation rewards. I might as well earn some XRP too. So that's the third way to earn. Or maybe if you want to be more conservative, you could just stake the FLR in the relayer. So we're going to have different options going forward of how to use our FLR. But prepare that it's only going to be probably dApps in the beginning. I wouldn't expect the FAsset system, and take that with a huge grain of salt. I said March 1st. I have no foundation to go on. That's completely pure, baseless speculation. Just going on, what I think would be time frame. I hope it's earlier, but there definitely has to be a governance vote. There's no doubt that has to happen. We have to vote it in because we're governing it. So this is, once again, once Flare launches, there's no more Flare does this, Flare does that. It's all governance, They're going to give themselves the right to, connect a certain amount of layer cake bridges to get going so they don't have to do everything through governance, which is fine. But everything else, any other type of big changes or other things, they don't have admin control over anything. And a lot of these networks, the foundations do have admin control. We have to look at the foundation as part of the community, where Flare team is more like a separate entity. But, remember, they're spinning up the FTSO system and the Stake Connector system with the attesters and a whole multi-chain network of nodes. They have to run on all these different networks, and they have to be able to get that data back and attest to it. And then they have to prove it. So that all had to be done first. So nobody's going to be able to copy this. It's not like another network's like, oh, we're going to copy what they're doing. No way. So they built this by design to lower the risk for the users to bring their assets to Flare. So you're always guaranteed to get back at least the amount that you minted in the asset, or worst case scenario, FLR. But it will never be 100% FLR because, like I said, it's spread around. It's not one agent. No agent's going to run off with XRP because the price jumps. That's not happening. They have use cases for it. They don't think like retail, like Moon, things like that. They're thinking how they could create business models. And like I said, spreading the risk. There'll be like 10, 20, 30. There could be more agents even. It could be hundreds, actually, if retail is involved. And the thing with Flare is everyone is able to participate in any role on the network. There's no privileged roles that only select entities can be. Anyone could be a bandwidth provider. Anyone could be an agent. Anyone could be an FTSO. Anyone could be a node. Anyone could be a validator. Anyone could be an attester. Now, with the validator and the attester, you have to first be an FTSO, and you got to work your way up there, which is, a good way of doing it going forward. But those other, roles, anyone could participate in. I don't know the governance of Layer Cake yet. We'll have to see, because that involves multiple networks, and it's not necessarily bridged only to Flare, where FAssets come to Flare first only. Layer Cake, they could go from ETH to Solana to Cosmos. Most will probably come to Flare. But it's the dApps that are mostly going to integrate that. Some users will do it, but even the FAssets, like in the beginning, we'll probably do this a lot ourselves directly, but a lot of dApps will just build it in to their application. And that's the point. Say it's derivative dApp. They just allow that capability right in, and then they pull in the Web2 data for some derivative product. So very powerful system that has multiple use cases, and it's very rare you see a network launch with a purpose-built application like this. So I have high hopes for the FAssets, but don't get your hopes up too high. It's not going to, oh my God, explode price, right away. It's better than burning, and it's better than staking, because the collateral meat is utility. So it means the asset's not just being wasted as proof of stake. It's being used to secure those minted assets, and it's securing the data for the data provisioning of FTSOs and earning yield. So it's going to keep topping up that collateral. So every 3.5 days, those agents' collaterals get topped up. So that feeds back in. And, that's part of the design. Yield-bearing collateral is the best collateral. And they earn foreign currencies. And that's key too, the fact they earn these outside assets. So we have the inner economy, which is the FTSOs and earning from the inflation rewards. Then there's a 3-year distribution. I mean, you could call that rewards, but it's a 3-year distribution of the native token. And if you wrap and delegate, you earn a percentage of it, depending on how many tokens you have versus how much vote power. And then third, if you're in the agent in the FAsset system, you could earn foreign currencies. That's the outside economy bringing outside currencies in. And we're not talking about like Dapp tokens and no-name, farming tokens. We're talking, you see the names there: ALGO, XLM, XRP, BTC, Litecoin. These are blue chip cryptos. So even Filecoin, those are blue chip cryptos, and it's good to see. I'm excited about the system. I've been excited since it first was announced. I was like, that is really how you start a DeFi. That's how you kick.
The Flare asset itself earns a return. But also if you bridge Bitcoin or you bridge DOGE or you bridge XRP to Flare, any of the FAssets, they earn a daily reward for bridging that because they're consuming a huge amount of collateral. Then we reward people for bridging to Flare, for essentially minting onto Flare. And those reward streams can create a new form of DeFi or a different form of DeFi, which is kind of crowdfunding. So you can put your FAsset or you can put your Flare into a contract. You don't risk the FAsset directly. You don't risk the Flare directly. You're simply passing over the returns from those assets to some developer in a crowdfunding manner that then gives you back in return something in their protocol, probably a protocol token. And so we see that as a really nice way to introduce people that maybe haven't engaged with DeFi before to a lower risk type of DeFi, whereby you're funding projects, but you're not risking your principal. You're just giving them the returns from your principal. To a lower risk type of DeFi, whereby you're funding projects, but you're not risking your principal. You're just giving them the returns from your principal in return for some share in their project. So we're going to do that with Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Litecoin, Stellar, XRP, all of the assets that we're bridging to Flare, you'll be able to do that with. So when we launch the mainnet, the FTSO and stake connector will be live, and you'll be able to do governance using your token, including, as I mentioned, SGB for governance. You'll be able to delegate to the FTSO. Now, really importantly, applications will be able to be built using the FTSO. And applications will be able to build using events from the stake connector. And this is really the most exciting thing. This is our Web 2 to Web 3. This is our blockchain to blockchain. Anyone from launch can build an application that takes in information from another blockchain or another system and does something interesting with a smart contract.
Any assets that are issued on Flare, including a XRP collateralized stablecoin, could then be traded on the XRP ledger's DEX. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Potentially there's a way, and we've defined it in a blog post on our blog, which is blog.flare.xyz, which we call Closing the Circle. So it's a relatively simple system which allows assets to be locked on Flare for those assets to then be issued on the XRP ledger as I think what people call what Ripple calls issued currencies and what other people called IOUs. And then if people extend trust lines to them, which I believe they will, then it will allow it to be passed around on the XRP ledger and traded on the XRP DEX.
Now, those would be trustless assets for the most part if it was a stable coin, unlike just a regular issued currency through an XRP ledger gateway, right? So that's what makes these unique. Because
the value to those assets are essentially underpinned by whatever the collateral is. And that collateral could be FXRP, which is, of course, the that is your XRP that's been put onto Flare, or and put onto Flare trustlessly, or it could, of course, be collateralized by Spark or any other token that is trustlessly issued on the Flare network. So that would be underpinned trustlessly, and the only things you need to actually trust are the networks themselves and the smart contracts.